The lobby of Meridian Capital was designed to make certain people feel they belonged and everyone else feel they didn't. Marble floors, gold fixtures. The particular hush of a building where money was serious and the people inside it knew it. The old man in the wheelchair did not look like he belonged. He was covered in mud from the street, the kind that accumulates when a wheelchair catches construction runoff that had been flooding the pavement outside for a week. His clothes were worn. His hands were shaking the way hands shake when a person is cold and has been outside too long. He had come through the doors because the doors were open and he needed somewhere dry. He asked for a glass of water. The branch manager's name was Sandra Voss. She came from her office because a staff member had flagged the situation, her word for it, as though a cold elderly man asking for water was a category of problem requiring managerial intervention. She looked at the mud on his wheels. She looked at the marble floor. She looked at the lobby full of clients watching to see what she would do. She picked up the cleaning bucket near the maintenance closet. She filled it at the sink. She walked back to the old man in the wheelchair, and she poured it over his head, not to help him, not with any pretense of assistance, to humiliate him, to communicate to the room and to him exactly where she believed he ranked in relation to this building and the people inside it. The lobby went completely silent. Water ran down his face and pooled on the marble below the chair. He sat very still. He did not make a sound. He looked up at her when it was finished with an expression that was not anger and not shame. Something quieter than both. The expression of a person who has seen a great deal of the world and has just had a particular truth about it confirmed. Before we begin, if you believe that dignity belongs to every human being, regardless of what they look like or where they are sitting, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Tales, and share this with someone who needs to believe in decency today. His name was Walter Hess. He was 79 years old, and he had founded Meridian Capital in 1987, from a single rented office with 2 employees and a belief that the financial sector was deliberately overcomplicated and that ordinary people deserved better. He had been right. The company now operated across 11 cities, employed 4,000 people, and had its name above the door of the lobby he was currently sitting in wet. He had stepped back from daily operations 3 years earlier when his health required it. His daughter ran the company now. He retained the founding title and the shareholding and came to the board quarterly and otherwise lived quietly. He visited branches unannounced several times a year, always without the car, always without the assistant, always in a condition that communicated nothing about who he was. He had been doing this since the company's 2nd year when a mentor told him that the truest measure of any organization is how it treats the people it has no reason to impress. He had visited 22 branches over 37 years. He had never seen anything like what Sandra had just done. A kindness tale. A woman near the back of the lobby had been moving before she fully decided to move. Her name was Delia. She was 52 years old and ran a flower shop 3 blocks away and came to this branch every month. She had watched what Sandra did and had crossed the lobby before the bucket was empty. She pulled off her cardigan as she walked and placed it around the old man's shoulders. She said, "Are you all right?" He looked at her. He said, "I've been wetter." She looked at Sandra. She said, "What you just did was cruel." Sandra said, "Please return to the queue." Delia said he asked for a glass of water. Sandra said, "He is not a client." Delia said, "He is a person." Nobody else moved. The particular paralysis of professional environments where people have witnessed something wrong and are calculating the cost of saying so had settled over the room. Delia did not calculate. She stayed where she was with her cardigan around the old man's shoulders. There was a security guard named Marcus who had taken 3 steps toward the desk when he saw Sandra pick up the bucket and had stopped because stopping was what the job required, and he had a family, and the calculation had happened in less than a second, and he had hated himself for the result. When Delia knelt beside the old man, Marcus crossed the lobby and stood beside them both. He said nothing. He just stood there. It was the smallest possible action. It was the only one he had left. The old man looked up at him. Marcus said, "I'm sorry I didn't move sooner." The old man said, "You moved." Walter looked at Delia and said, "Could you help me to the desk, please?" She wheeled him forward. Sandra looked up. Walter said, "I would like to make a withdrawal." Sandra said she would need identification. He reached into his soaked jacket and produced a wallet and placed a card on the desk. Sandra looked at it. It was a founding member card. One existed in the entire company. Walter said, "My name is Walter Hess. I believe my photograph is on the wall behind you." The lobby did not move. Sandra turned. The wall behind the desk carried the company's history, the founding year, the milestones. A photograph from 1987 of a man in his 40s at a desk in a rented office. Younger, without the wheelchair. Recognizable if you were looking, which Sandra now was. She looked at the photograph. She looked at the man in the wheelchair. She looked at the empty bucket by the desk. Something moved across her face that was not performance. The specific private reckoning of a person who has understood not the strategic dimension of what they have done, but the actual one. Walter said, "I would like that glass of water now, please." It was brought immediately. He drank it. He said, "I will ask you to come to my office on Monday morning. Not because of who I am. Because of what you did to a person who was cold and asked for water. The chair he was sitting in and the clothes he was wearing were not relevant to that request. They were never relevant. You made them the entire basis of your response." He looked at Delia. He said, "Your flower shop, Alderton Street." She said, "How do you know that?" He said, "I passed it on the way here. The window display stopped me. I would like to redirect our corporate flower contract to your shop if you are willing." She looked at him. She said, "You don't have to do that." He said, "I know, I want to." She said, "Then yes." He looked at Marcus. He said, "You moved. That matters. I'll remember your name." He did. 6 months later, Marcus was promoted to head of branch security on the recommendation of a review Walter requested personally, citing conduct during an incident that had not been officially reported, but had been seen by the one person whose memory mattered most to be in. Sandra's employment ended Monday morning. Walter had the conversation himself. Brief, without theater. He said what he had said he would say, that it was not about who the man turned out to be. It was about what you do when someone arrives cold and asks for something simple. She had made a choice that could not be unchoiced, and the company could not be a place where that choice had no consequence. She left through the same marble lobby, past the same gold fixtures, under the same name above the door. Walter spent the rest of that morning meeting with staff in small groups. Not about the incident, about the company, what it was for. What the man in 1987 in the rented office had believed it could be. He said, "The truest measure of this organization is how it treats the people it has no reason to impress. That was true when I started it, and it is true today. I am sorry that I had to come in here, covered in mud, to find out whether we still understood that. We will do better." He meant it. He had meant it for 37 years. The next morning, Delia's shop received its first corporate order, the largest single order she had ever fulfilled. She worked until 10 that evening to complete it with music on and the windows open and the particular satisfaction of work that arrived because someone saw you do something right. She sent a small arrangement to the branch the following morning. Her own design, no invoice, a note that said simply, "For the lobby." The receptionist put it on the front desk. It was the first thing people saw when they walked in. Walter heard about it and said nothing for a moment. Then he said, "That sounds exactly right. Never look at the chair first. Never look at the mud. Never look at anything before you look at the person. Because the person is always the whole story. Everything else is just what happened to them on the way to your door. And how you treat them at your door is the truest thing about you. Not the marble. Not the name above the entrance. Not the distance you have built between yourself and the person who needs something simple. Just that. What you do when someone arrives cold and asks for water. That is the measure. That has always been the measure. If this story stayed with you, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs it today. Subscribe to Kindness Tales for more stories of dignity, quiet courage, and the truth that how we treat people when we think it does not matter is exactly when it matters most. Because kindness is not something you save for the people you recognize. It is something you give to everyone who walks through the door. Welcome to Kindness Tales. We are so glad you are here.